Expectations doom Caleb.
No, because all he needs to win over are Bears fans. All he needs to do is have the people in Chicago be like, we got it right. That will quiet anything else, any of the other noise. And for them to think they got it right, I think that'll be done by midseason. I don't think people realize how truly awful the Bears quarterback. No Bills or Bears fan alive has seen their team have a good quarterback. None of them.
Yeah,
like here is the single best quarterback season in Bears history. We can show it to you. It's a name you probably had forgotten, Eric Kramer. That's the best year in 70 years.
What Jay Cutler?
So I'm telling you, okay, well, in the last, so that's my point. Since Sid Luckman, Sonny Jurgensen. So the Bears have not had a top 20 offense in 8 years. They've had 2 top 20 offenses in the last 20 years. Mitch Trubisky in the last decade is the best season. He had a 3,200-yard, 24 touchdown, 12 pick season. The quarterback with the highest career passer rating in Bears history is Mitch Trubisky. Jim Harbaugh was their starting quarterback for 4 years in a row, never once threw 16 touchdowns in a season. It was in the 90s. It wasn't in the 70s. So the point I'm making is I understand I have very high expectations. Bears fans, some of them fell in love with Justin Fields.
Well,
Yeah. And so I think that he has to clear the bar of, oh my God, we finally have a real quarterback. And he will do that.
Like Bryce didn't do that last year.
Correct. Bryce didn't do that last year. He will do that instantly. And so I don't think, I think it'll be no problem at all.
I think you are completely underestimating the pressure that's on him, the expectations, because it's not just Bears fans. Like you said it, Bears fans fell in love with Justin Fields. A lot of them didn't want to trade him and go with Caleb. All right, so he won them over. So that doesn't mean if you win the Bears fans over, that doesn't mean anything. Because Justin just did it, and now he's out there.
Justin won a percentage of them.
But more than you would expect, right? A lot thought, oh, let's just keep him and build around him. But Nick, the expectations are you said they're going to the Super Bowl.
I did, but
other people expect them to make the playoffs. Not everybody, but some people expect them to make the playoffs. How many times have we heard, not just from you, no number 1 pick has ever gone into such a great situation? Right. How many times have we heard C.J. Stroud, what he did last year? We were talking, I think it was yesterday, is he going to have a better season? Why can't he have a better season than C.J. Stroud? C.J. Stroud had maybe the best season ever for a rookie.
Right.
And so I am totally in agreement with Nick Saban on this. The article we just talked about Hurts and Sirianni. In that article, you guys know, it said, somebody was quoted as saying, Jalen Hurts was trying to show he was worth the $250 million contract on every pass. This is a grizzled veteran. I get it, he's still young, but been in the league several years. By all accounts, a great leader, even as he might be a quiet guy. A solid leader, solid high character, great work ethic. And he got caught up into the, I got this money, now I got to show people what I can do. We don't think that could happen to Caleb Williams? So I think that's that. And then I think, Nick, 2 things that high expectations do. Number 1, the Bears are going to get everybody's great game.
So I don't
Because now they're on it. Like before, people would have been like, okay, they're the Bears. Okay. They're not that good. They haven't made the playoffs in a while. And they got a rookie quarterback.
Can I ask a question
you
about
take
that?
them a little bit lightly. Now it's like, oh, this dude, he thinks he's all that, and they think he's all that.
Do you think teams have the ability to give everyone their best game every week?
No.
Okay. So when the Vikings, when the Vikings have 6 divisional games this year, what's the one they're going to take the lightest?
Here's what it is.
Like, I just don't buy that.
Obviously, that's not measurable, but here's what it is. Taking a team lightly or really being like, okay, this is going to be a big game. You might be like, this is a big game and still go out there and not have a good one, a la the Baltimore Ravens against the Chiefs. I'm just saying your attitude is like, oh,
yeah, they're not going
some
to
teams you will take lightly. Yes, and that's big.
But the only
for
teams
a
that
rookie.
sneak up on people are bad teams.
Well,
These
they've
teams
been a bad team for a while. And if it wasn't for so much hype, people would be still thinking, okay, they're the Bears. Yeah,
Okay. They're having the wrong discussion right now from my viewpoint. We got to answer this question directly. Will expectations hurt Caleb? Now, what they're bringing up kind of everything but Caleb Williams and what pressure can do to the individual that we're talking about, Caleb Williams. And then you have to ask yourself, if you think the answer is yes, expectations will hurt Caleb, well then, what are we saying? Are we saying that Caleb can't handle the pressure? That Caleb can't handle the moment? Are we saying that the expectations will hurt Caleb in the sense of just how people perceive? Whereas he could be great, but if he doesn't play as good as CJ Stroud or have CJ Stroud's numbers, or if he doesn't make it to the Super Bowl like Nick is saying, therefore now people are like, oh, well, he didn't play good enough, he's not good enough? Or are we just saying that the expectations will hurt him as in he feels these expectations and therefore he's now kind of shrinking because of it, right? Crumbling because of it, or just not playing as great as he could, right? So to me, that has to be more clearly defined. I'm going to answer this question as in the expectations will hurt Caleb in the sense of he's feeling that pressure, those expectations, and now we're asking him, can he overcome that? Can he still play great? Because I'm not going to get lost in these numbers. If he plays really great and is clearly a growing quarterback and clearly the bona fide number one pick and is on the trajectory to be a great quarterback, if he throws a few less, passing touchdowns than CJ Stroud or isn't able to make it to the playoffs and win a playoff game or whatever it may be, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, CJ Stroud's clearly better or CJ Stroud clearly had the better year. It's irrelevant to me. They're completely different circumstances on completely different teams. I will always have to repeat that to you guys. Comparing other stats is just not as equal as people think it is. You just can't do that. It's just completely different circumstances with just completely different players, different coaches, different schedules, different everything. It's not, we're not in a vacuum here. So it's uninteresting to me to be like, well, so-and-so threw for 4,200 yards while he only threw for 3,800 yards. It's like, okay, so we're just going to say that that's a bigger number than that, therefore he's better than that, or that he had a better year? You have to actually really look at who did they play? What was the strength of schedule? What weapons did they have? What type of offense did they run? How many times did they throw the ball? What were the scores? Were these close games? What was the division? There's just so many questions. So many questions. So again, I'm not going to allow those types of expectations to mean anything to me. So I'm looking at Caleb like this. I think Caleb is a stand-up person and will be a great person and will be a great quarterback. In one of my first videos that I ever made about Caleb, I gave caution and said, there's a lot on Caleb's plate. He has to learn how to be a leader. He has to learn. He has to grow. He has to become this, right? Like, he can't just enter in day one. But that doesn't mean that I think that the expectations are going to hurt him, right? That's way too strong of a word here. Hurt him. That it's like if he had no expectations, he would be this. And with the expectations, he's going to be this. That's not how I see it. I think no matter what the situation is, Caleb Williams will be Caleb Williams. Whether he has all the expectations and all the pressure in the world or zero. Because I think Caleb will be able to handle the expectations, right? Like, it's just not going to change his play. Will it change how he talks to the media, how he talks to his friends, how he talks to his teammates, his coaching staff? Sure, that's definitely possible. And that is something that I think he will need to learn how to handle and deal with and grow into a leader. I'm pretty confident how Patrick Mahomes talked to Andy Reid and how he talked to the other players in the media when he was a rookie is a lot different how he talks now. Okay? And that's all expectations, growth, resume, success, failures. It's a whole picture that needs to be painted. And obviously Caleb Williams is now starting that journey. But in terms of the play on the field, I just don't see it hurting or helping for that matter. Okay? Caleb Williams has already opened up the door of him being judged, of him being pulled down, of people seeing him that he's weak. I already read some comments, which I think, quite frankly, and I don't say this lightly, because I never want to talk down to the people that watch this, my videos or anything like that. I'm all about treating everyone with respect, and the fans and all of that. And that's like my whole thing, right? It's like treating you guys as your opinions actually matter, because I do think that. But I do see some trash comments where they're just like, nobody will ever follow Caleb because he paints his nails or whatever. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, what an insane statement. Or that he cried to his mommy. And it's just like, oh God, guys, like, what are you talking about? Right, because I'm sure you've never cried before. You've never cried a day in your life. I'm sure. The fact that he even does that kind of just shows that he's actually resilient, that he's actually really strong, that he's not afraid to show those emotions, that he's not afraid to open up the door, because he knows if he paints his nails or has a pink phone or whatever, or he wore something weird one day for a photo shoot. I don't really remember, because quite frankly, I don't care about any of those stories. They don't mean anything to me. But like, the fact that he does means that he's kind of, pretty strong, that he's got the confidence to be able to do that. Because it's usually the small, really, really weak people. They're the ones that are afraid to express those emotions. They're the ones that are afraid, of the expectations. They're the ones that are afraid of the moment. They shut down, or they try to hide, or they try to pretend to be something that they are not. I'm going to try to phrase this in a way that makes this video not get too distracted, but it's very relevant. There's a very famous public thinker. I'm not going to say his name, because his name can sometimes make people get a little wonky, but he's very, very popular. He can be a little abrasive, but I think a lot of what he says. And he talks about how you have to be a monster, that if you're weak, and you're a good person, what does that mean? You're weak. You have no choice but to try to be a good person. But it's more commendable and more powerful to be a monster, but still be a good person. Because if you can still be ruthless and cause serious harm, but you choose not to, that shows strength. That shows courage. And I really wholeheartedly agree with that. And you're probably wondering, well, like, what are you talking about? And he now kind of goes on and says that the people who do the really terrible things in this world, the people who go into movie theaters and malls and cause serious harm, you guys know what I'm getting at. He talks about how those are the weak people. Those are the small-minded people. But yet, on the surface, you would say, look at those guys. They're fearless. I mean, like, look what they're doing. They're doing this awful, unspeakable thing. What they're doing, right? They are causing literal harm and terror. Yet, on the surface, their actions are ruthless. And like, if we just stripped it of what they were actually doing and just looked at it on the face, you would say, like, well, you have to have courage to be able to do that. You have to be able to be fearless to do that. And no. It's the opposite. Those people are the most afraid. They are the weakest people out there. So the fact that you're seeing Caleb express himself, be himself, and be fearless in that moment, to me, actually shows a lot more. The fact that he's willing to open up that door and say, this is who I am. That is why I do not think things like expectations or the moment is going to hurt him. Okay? And I really encourage you all to kind of like think about what I'm trying to say here, because I am now just judging him strictly on his character, and the things that he has done in the past that people use to take away from his character and to actually knock him. I think it's the exact opposite. The exact opposite. The man who can cry to his wife and show his emotions is way more of a man and way more of a badass father than anyone else, and the guy who just hides and is stoic and just endures everything 24/7. Because that guy just begins to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink until one day they just absolutely collapse. And Caleb Williams is not shown to be that person. And so that's why I really think that he can have, this idea that expectations will hurt Caleb, I think is just silly. I think it's just like a nonsense narrative. And, to even just take a random, soundbite from Saban saying expectations are a killer. I just think it's nonsense. I really, really do. It's just so funny because on one side, these coaches will say, You got to believe you can be the best. You got to believe you're the better team. You got to believe that you can win it all to be able to do it. And then when you say, okay, well, we expect this from ourselves, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Expectations are a killer. It's like, well, which is it, coach? Are you telling me that I need to believe in myself and that I expect myself to succeed and I expect myself to be great? Or are you saying I shouldn't have those at all? I should just be like, well, gee golly, I guess we're just going to find out who's better tonight. Which is it? So I just reject the idea that any expectations will hurt Caleb. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that these expectations will actually hurt Caleb Williams? And that, you know, it can kind of take away from his season and the Chicago Bears' success? Or do you think, no, that actually it'll either help him or just not play a factor at all? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.